Hey everyone, welcome back to Trail Talk. I'm your host Aaron Shimmons. Thanks for coming back once again for our trail and ultra running show. This week, got an interesting conversation coming up with James Poole, the London-based ultra runner. He's done it all. He's going back for his fourth go at the Speed Project, LA to Las Vegas. I think he leaves tomorrow. So we've caught up with James to get the lowdown on everything TSP, and we also tackled some of the WhatsApp community questions as well. So thanks for submitting those. Before we get there, we have to thank our sponsors, xmiles.co.uk, the one-stop nutrition shop. Get all your gels, get all your powders, get all your bits and pieces that you need for training and racing, and use the code IRunOverMountains for a discount at checkout. And secondly, GOREWEAR.com for the best apparel in the business. And I'm not just saying that. The Concurve gear for Spring Summer 25 is just out of this world. Great quality stuff, and this year they brought out some fire colors to go with that great quality. So check out GOREWEAR and use the code IRunOverMountains30 for 30% off at checkout there, which is an unbelievable deal. Anyway, let's go and chat with James. James Poole, welcome back to Trail Talk. We were just saying this time last year, maybe 4 live streams from your trip along the TSP route to Vegas. You're flying out tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning, yeah.
So let's set the scene for the viewers. What's the TSP and why are you going back for the 4th time?
So the Speed Project originated, I think this is its 12th year, I think. I might be wrong. But it was originally a relay race. It still is a relay race, but it originated as a relay race. Niels and Scotty and some others who are still part of it decided to go and run from Santa Monica Pier to the Welcome to Vegas sign. They did it with just a car or a smallish vehicle, and they did a relay race. And then over time, that's become super popular, and the relays become popular. And then for 5 years ago, it started during COVID. So the first edition was only US runners because no one else could get there. But the first edition was the first solo run from following the same process, which is no rules, no spectators. You start in Santa Monica Pier and you finish at the Welcome to Vegas sign, and you choose any route that you want to get there. So it's very limited in structure. It's as simple as you start here and you finish here, and first person there wins if that's an important part of the process.
So it's like 500 plus kilometers, give or take, I don't know, 50 or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Aaron who won it last year in 75 hours, I think he was around 480. So he was pretty much bang on 300 miles.
Okay.
Last year I was 498. So he had a slightly different route, but he had a crew. So it makes a big difference.
Talk a little bit about then this whole no rules, no spectators. Where did this come about? Because it's as closely linked to the brand as any other aspect.
Yeah, and I don't honestly know, to be honest, exactly where it came from. But I mean, it's very much in the spirit of no spectators doesn't literally mean no spectators, of course, though there are no spectators because it's a long way, and even for the relay team that you're moving quite quickly, no one's out on the roads. But it also means more like sort of seize the day or don't be a bystander. No spectators means get involved, and that also encompasses then the crews and the content creators and the teams. Everyone, be involved in some way, and that can be positive. Be positive, add something to the experience, and then you're no longer a spectator. So it's much more holistic than no the obvious, more literal term, no spectators. But it just means be involved, support people, share things, don't be a gatekeeper, share the knowledge, share the experience. And then the no rules thing is, I mean, again, it's not literally there's no rules. There are some guardrails, if you like, is a better way of thinking of them. You don't run on the freeway. One, it's illegal, and two, it's super stupid. Largely is it, to be honest. But it is, pick your own route, go any direction you want, follow the rules so that no one gets killed. But ultimately, it's free reign to do it as you please. And obviously, I guess the other rule is you've got to run. So you need to cover the distance on foot.
And originally it was the relay. Now there's solo, there's unsupported, and then there's solo supported. Or explain that.
Again, you can get you can drill down, and there's categories within the relay races of how many teams and things, and ultimately it is there, exists, but I think I wouldn't want people to focus too much on the subcategories, which are not that important. The reality is people getting from Santa Monica to Las Vegas on foot. But if you want to drill into the solo categories, because I can talk better about those, there is one category, solo. No one's getting any extra bonus points if you have a crew or you don't have a crew. I mean, it's not a race in the traditional sense where anyone cares. And I've done it in the first year with a film crew, which is a little different, but always with the intention to try and do it in the most cut back, minimalist way possible. Even with the film crew, they just gave me water pretty much, and it got quite hard on that first year, and I did get some support from them. That wasn't my intention. For the latter 2 years, the last 2 years, I've just done it with a backpack. But no one's giving you any extra bonus points because you did it because you're stupid enough not to have a crew. So, so there aren't really any categories. But what I think is that more people are now having that. Now, I did it last year. I was 8th out of 24 with a backpack, no crew, on my own. That starts to show what is capable. People are capable of if you have the mindset to do it, because it does become mostly about mind. Obviously, there's an element of fitness, but largely it's about can you get your head around doing 500 kilometers on your own, mostly on your own in the middle of nowhere for 5 or 6 days, and that in itself perhaps is a step that people need to get their head around before they make a first step on the course, because it's obviously harder if you haven't got someone down the road waiting for you, giving you food or a massage or just even some
moral support.
Some encouragement. But this year I understand, I think it's 2 other people. So there's Jackie, and I think it's like Cole, something like that. And if I could remember it, I still get it wrong because it's quite difficult to say. But she's from Arizona. She's also got a blade, so she only has one normal leg and then one prosthetic. So she's doing it, I think. And I think I heard when she was talking about using a stroller, which clearly makes a lot of sense. And I've thought about using a stroller as well. But and then there's a guy from, I want to say, from Maine, who's also called James, and I think he's doing it just with a backpack as well. So there may be more. I haven't drilled down. I understand there's about 40 solos this year, up from 24. So we're seeing I think it was 6 or 7 in the first year when it was US runners only. I think it might be 7 or 8 in the second year, and then it was, I think, 14 in the third, and last year was 24. So it's getting some visibility. It's getting some more people who are thinking maybe they can do it.
Yeah. So let's dig specifically into the solo adventure, because I mean, essentially the relay and stuff, it's a different type of style, whereas the solo is very much a raw type of adventure. And I mean, it's the type of way I would have an interest in doing it. What are the main things about this route? There's an OG route, there's the shortest route. Explain that to me and for everybody.
So the OG route, I think, as I understand it, was the original route that they took. And you can go ahead and do that OG route, and it's 340 miles. So it's another, 65 kilometers or something on top. So it's probably more like 550 or something kilometers total. So it's longer. It does follow a certain route, which you then must follow the route. So in the spirit of Speed Project No Rules, it's kind of a rule because you follow this route and therefore you can say you've done. Not many people choose to do that. One person did last year, another guy, Cole, did the year before, and they went and did the extra route. I personally wouldn't, and if you do it self-supported, it's very difficult because it's a big stretch along. It's quite a famous part of the Speed Project. Almost most people end up on the thing called the power lines. If you ever see a Instagram reel or photos and things on the cake, you'll see these, they are the power lines that stretch out, I think, about 100 miles along the route. And I think the power lines road is about 60 miles. So, and it can be a challenge for the RVs. So unless you have a support vehicle that's a pickup truck, then you struggle on that section. And I think It's also just logistically more difficult. And what's happened, the reason that it began as the OG, and then people over the years and the relay teams have cut corners and found new routes. And that certainly used to be part of the process, was can people find 5 miles less so that they're 5 miles quicker with their running teams, and they bring that time down. I think for most people, it's, you pick the route that is the shortest possible, because if you're running on your own, you don't really want to do more than you want to do the shortest route possible, right? Yeah, exactly. Because the reality is, especially towards the end, the going gets slow, and you could be doing a K an hour. If you to do an extra 10K, it's extra 2 hours, and when you're already tired. So most people are wheedled it down to around that sort of 500K mark, rather than the 550, 560 of the OG route.
I remember you talking about that last year on the last day on the stream, and you were thinking, if I'm moving at I forget what the speed was. If I'm moving at this, I'm gonna be in Vegas by this.
Yeah, you have a lot of time on your hands when you're out there on your own, so you work the maths through, and and you end up thinking, well, it's going to be, next time I'm going to see a gas station is 40 miles, I know, well, 50K or something. You're like, well, I'm doing 8K an hour, so I've got 6 to 7 hours before I get to the next. And you just do those sort of maths things, but also keeps you pushing on a little bit, because you look, and I might look at 5K splits, and you might say, okay, well, I need to do 40-minute 5Ks to get to that time, that place, which sounds ridiculously slow when you think about 40-minute 5Ks, but when you're 200 and when you're 300, 400 kilometers in, that's a good result.
Plus the
back. Yeah, I mean, the backpack is the biggest limiter, really, because you've got to carry a certain amount of kit to keep yourself safe and keep yourself warm and keep yourself cool, and obviously food and water.
We'll come to that whenever we turn our attentions to gear. I know there's some differences this year with the route that you're going to do, but before we get into that, maybe we could talk a bit about the field or the solo runners and the various ways that people will do this, because thinking back to last year, you were there pretty much, I wouldn't say on your own, but you were self-sufficient, gas stations, cooking, whatever you needed to do.
So yeah, I'm 100%. That was how I wanted to do it, and that's how it turned out.
But others will be moving solo, but they'll have like a crew in a camper van meeting them at, I don't know, 30, 40, whatever the intervals make sense. So over the years, do many people do it in the style that you've been approaching it?
No, I'm the only person who's done it to date with just a backpack. Everyone's had a crew for good reason. But this year, as I said, I think there's James and I think there's Jackie. So there'll be 2 additional people who are going to do it on their own, which is cool, because it just changes things. And I think, if you, as I said, it's no great shit. There's not a great deal of focus on who came first and who came second. That's not really whilst that's there, it's not, it's more about the journey and the experience and the doing it than it is about who comes first. Not taking anything away from Aaron, who ran 75 hours, which was about 10 hours, 12 hours quicker than anyone else. And Lucy, who previously had the course record. So, it's nuts. But I think more importantly, you can move quite quickly as a single person, because you have less time. This crew is amazing, but they can also be detrimental to you, because every time you see them, they can get the chair out. They can be like, you sit in the chair for 15 minutes. They massage your legs. You get your boots on, compression boots on, and you can have that, and then you can lose an hour. As where if you're on your own, you got no reason to, other than stopping for food and stopping because you're really tired. You've got no reason. There's no distraction, and so you can end up moving slower, but stopping less.
Yeah.
And so you can end, as I said, at 8th place is that's not. It's more a point of showing that you can be in the top third of the field and not have a crew. I don't think the crew is definitely an advantage, but it can also be a limiter if you and there's obviously inherently some ability within that. So the ability to keep moving and to move for 20 hours a day plus is inherently quite difficult. But the crew not having a crew doesn't need to be complete. You can't do it without. You can, and you can do all right. You just have to keep pushing on without the support of anyone else.
Over the years, there's been new routes. They're in different locations
Mm.
popping up. You did the Atacama Desert.
Yeah.
I think, was it October 23?
Yeah, it was not long. Yeah, 23, October 23. Yeah.
And then last year, there was also a Salt Lake City.
So yeah, and we can probably talk about. So there's a lot of people. I mean, the thing about the Speed Project is worth mentioning. This is that it's definitely, if you're into it, it's like a family. There's a vibe. If you get that journeyman kind of experience, even on and it's principally from the relay teams, but people create great friendships, great connections at the Speed Project. Not everyone, but there's definitely let's not call it a cult, but there's definitely a group of people there who, maybe I only see them once a year and I see them in the Speed Project, but I love, they're amazing people. Nicky, who ran with me, who crewed me for Atacama, I met him at UTMB, but we did spend a lot of time in Speed Project the year before. We might only see each other twice a year, but probably one of them will be at the Speed Project. So there's a lot of people there who have an affinity to the concept, to Niels and the team. But how many times can you keep coming back and doing the same thing? So over the last couple of years, there started to be some secret mission type things. There was one they have a race now in Europe. So Chamonix to Marseille, it happened first time last year. I understand it's happening again this year. But that had for some teams, they went up a different mountain and got a photo up some extra piece, and it was optional. And again this year, so last year a few teams ran Salt Lake City to Las Vegas, which is longer. It's called Secrets and no one really talks about it. But I think it just allows people to continue to be involved and give them another challenge that isn't necessarily for everybody, but is for some. And it just keeps things moving and keeps things fresh. And if you want that level of extra challenge, then it's there.
So where did the desert one come from? Because I can see the synergies between all of the others.
Well, the Atacama Desert, became because during COVID 2020, a decentralized speed project because no one could travel. So the challenge was, I think that at the time the record for the relay was like 29 hours for 300 miles relay team, which is, if you think about those numbers, it's kind of nuts. That's 6-minute miles, 16 kilometers an hour for 30 hours. Pretty wild. So that's I think it might have been Blue Ribbon Sports, the Nike team that did it that year. Wouldn't like to put money on it, but I'm pretty sure that's kind of the team. So there's some fast. So the decentralized version was DIY, TSP DIY. Go out and run 429 in a team, get your friends together within the restrictions that your country allowed. Go and do it. There's a group out there in Chile, a running crew, and the maths based off of Phil Maffetone, the MA, these super nice guys. They went out and ran 29 hours.
They named their team after Phil Maffetone.
Yeah. These guys, they're like they're geeky,
low heart rate heroes.
They're good geeky in a good way. So they went out and did it for DIY, and then they, I think, came to LA the following year, and then bullied Niels, the kind of principal organizer and often the face of TSP, into making it. It took a bit of convincing, I think, but eventually they went out and did a recce. I think the following year. So they did a recce as a couple of teams, and they were like, oh, it's good, it's wild, and it's dangerous. And the Speed Project LA to Las Vegas during those years had become quite not mainstream, but a lot of brands had done it, a lot of people had done it. I think it would become maybe a little bit more vanilla than there was the original. When it was 6 people doing something crazy, it's wild. And just what could they find that was going back to the roots of the original Speed Project? And Atacama Desert was like that on steroids. It was like, if there's a few guardrails in LA to Vegas, there's no guardrails in Chilean desert. You're in Atacama Desert, you're like, in the middle of nowhere, and it's way more dangerous and way more remote. And suddenly there's excitement from a lot of people who'd done the original Speed Project to go and do something new. And I think that's, I speak to Niels from time to time, and I think there's always that desire to find the next new Speed Project challenge. And the one Chamonix to Marseille is a different kind of challenge in itself, because it goes through the mountains and might not be it's not as remote by any means, because you're in France rather than the desert of Chile. But it's again, it's about kind of changing things up. It's about giving people in Europe a bit of an opportunity to go and do the Speed Project, because it's not cheap to go to LA and run to Las Vegas. and it's a long way, and you need to, if you're going to do it with a crew, you need to get all that stuff. So the French one starts to give Europeans, but there's a lot of US runners as well. That one this year's last year. So it's I mean I think it's about evolution of the concept within those guidelines of kind of no spectators, no rules.
And there was no solo runners in the Chamonix one last year.
Well, there was one unofficial.
Okay.
Who started, and he just said to Niels, "I'm doing it." And again, I love that because it's just he didn't ask for anything. He just said, "I'm getting on the Friday before everyone did the reel." No, on the Monday before everyone did the reel on the Friday, he just went down to the church where the L'Église in the centre of Chamonix and just did like a.
Started his watch.
Did like an Instagram live and said, "See you in Marseille." And he went around. I think his wife crewed him. It's just that's a strong marriage, right? If you if you go in your like saloon car, you just crew somebody across the whole of France.
And what are the stats for that one?
I haven't looked too in depth to it. It's a little bit shorter, I think, but it's got a lot of climbing because you start in the Alps and then you have to get out of the Alps. So I had a quick look, and I think it's about 20-ish thousand meters of climbing, and then 20 up and down. So you start and it's actually got a little bit more down because obviously you finish at the sea, but it's certainly a different experience because a speed project LA to Las Vegas might have 4,000 meters. It's principally flat. There's some climbing out of the LA kind of basin, and then there's a bit of climbing into Las Vegas. Otherwise, it's long flat straight roads.
You mentioned about brands and brand involvement over the years, and even last year we saw the Merrill sponsored group that ran from London to Paris in a relay, and it had like a similar. It felt like it was inspired by the Speed Project, and that was a brand trying to create something to get, I don't know, some content, I suppose, some vibes. Satisfy have had a team. On have had a team. Nike have had a team. Like, where do you see this going, and what do you think the brands are getting out of this?
I mean, Strava had a team, Tracksmith had a team. I do wonder. I don't honestly know. I think it's probably in keeping with what's happening with brands and the broader running industry, where brands are run communities, run crews are finding out that they actually hold the power, if you like. The run crews brands need run crews more than run crews need brands. You don't, to have a run crew, you don't have to have a brand giving you shoes and pulled pork burgers and somewhere to. You don't need that, but the brands want to do an activation with their customers. So I think in keeping with that broader, and certainly in the UK, that more broad approach of brands working on a small, on a one race campaign with one crew and then a different crew. I think what we're certainly seeing is brands giving kit and sponsoring and perhaps money to individuals or to teams to come out, but not being the Merrill, Nike, whatever team, but actually being the Nuremberg running crew or another group and finding existing crews, a more organic approach, I guess, to brand involvement, which I think makes for a better experience for people. I think the challenge is for Niels as for the race is, do you end up then just having brands sort of sidestepping the use of the TSP as their own brand activation? I mean, that's not my thing to worry about, but is it a way of working around instead of paying for a team as a brand, which might cost you, I don't know what it costs, but let's say $10,000. Do you avoid that by giving some money to a team to come and then creating content with them? Which I don't know. I mean, it's not my worry, but I feel like that will be the I guess the challenge of how it becomes. It's not very commercial right now, and I think the commerciality of it is about right. I think if it became a big, if it was the Nike Speed Project, would it be? I'm not sure that would be what I'd want. It's not that I wouldn't support it, but I feel like that would be maybe negative rather than.
Yeah, it wouldn't really be true to the brand.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
I get the impression that they want to keep it or as organic and as low key, if you like, in many ways as it is.
But the one thing that a lot of people will come back to whenever I'm talking to them about the Speed Project is that, yeah, it's very vibey, and also it seems to attract influencers. You know, it's an adventure. They can create a lot of content around it, and like influencers are.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. No,
It's not a bad thing. But thinking to like the brands are then able to use, rather than advertise anything,
Yeah.
they can just pay for an influencer to,
and that's true. And I think
have that adventure, and they get the content. And
I know, having done it a few years and known Neil's quite well, I know that I don't know what the depth of the conversation, and I wouldn't want to get involved, and I might completely be wrong, but I do know that there are some conversations that are had around rights usage of the brand, and I've seen some emails across people, shots across people's bows for kind of maybe just overstepping the mark a little bit with. But also, I do know that particularly for Solo, you don't split the cost with anybody. Most people, I suspect, they pay for their crews, they pay for their RV. So there's an element of how do you enable? How does the organization? How does TSP, if it's an organization, how does TSP enable more solo runs to come without cutting off the way to get them there? And I suspect a lot of the solo runners this year, I know Holly Rush, who's was Commonwealth Games marathon runner, is running this year with a view to running super fast, and she's got support from Salomon and Sports Shoes. I don't know to what extent that it gives content, but I'm sure conversations were had. And when I've spoken to her, I've said, speak to Speed Project, don't make it a surprise that if you're going to produce content. And just, again, with all these things, the thing that's so good about Speed Project is the transparency of it, or the no rules, no spectators. Go and have those conversations rather than it be like someone riding a city bike around the New York Marathon, making content. No names obviously mentioned, but like instead of doing that, do it the right way and find out what Niels is a super good guy, super encouraging to the solo part, which has kind of maybe reinvigorated the race a little bit in terms of pushing the boundaries, making things new and fresh. And I mean, obviously, seeing 10, 15 new runners every year shows that there is some excitement around it. So I think it's just the challenge of anyone who's trying to push the boundaries in these places, and getting the funding and getting the support from whoever to make it happen. And then, and hopefully they get that support and they can tell great stories, and it encourages more people, and the holistic goal is achieved. But it's definitely, it's always going to be that, I think, that little friction between what's taking the piss and what's good in all of this, whether it be in athletics or whether it be, in professional athletics, or whether it be in amateur running. It's always that, how much is too much.
And then thinking about, like, if anyone wants to do the Speed Project, can they do it? Is there an entry fee? Do you have to, like, it happens around the same time as Barkley, and Barkley is is the only other thing I can think of that might have some air of mystery around the entry process.
Yeah, and I think that's intentional, but it's invitation only. I mean, the best way is to find someone who's well regarded by the broader group at Speed Project, and talk to them and find out. So actually, it's worth mentioning, the women's solo this year is the solo race is 50-50, or it's going to be very close to 50-50 men, women. So there was an extra category, an extra requirement this year, that if you were if you're a man, you brought a woman with you. And certainly it didn't start off like that, but certainly towards it, as it started to fill up, there could always be more people, but it was certainly got to a point where they were like, we don't want it to be a sausage fest. If you want to come, then you need to also find a woman who will make that, bring that closer to 50-50 as we can. So yeah, I mean, I think, which is great. It'd be great to have, this is a 500-kilometer race, to have 40 people line up and 20 men, 20 women, I think is great.
And that's in the solo category?
That doesn't apply to relays, I don't think. It definitely applies to the solo. Yeah, which
is a mad number. That's really cool to see.
Very cool, yeah. And I think there's people like Lucy, who was the former, Lucy Schultz, who was the former record holder, who won it outright a couple of years ago. She's been quite instrumental in in giving people. And this is the thing, everyone gives it. Oh, if someone wants my route, they can have my route. I'm not going to gatekeep my route and she's been very encouraging with some of the female runners last year. I know with this year, she's not running solo this year. She's running a team of all women who've never done it before. So, but there's those good people who come up every year who've done it. Someone like Lucy's done numerous relays, and then she's done the solo twice. She's done Atacama Desert, who just bring that encouragement and that vibe, and that makes this thing better and better. And kind of the reason I want to be involved is those people come and they give everything back, and I hope I can give as much back as she does. Maybe not, but you want the thing to be bigger and better, because it's just such an awesome experience, even if you don't finish it.
Yeah.
And not everyone does.
So whenever people want to follow the race, that's one time.
To answer your question, yeah, there is an entry fee, but it's not much. It's like $250 or something. Certainly less than the UTMB entry fee these days.
I wasn't going to ask you in case you intentionally didn't say.
No, I think it's just. I think I'm right in saying it's the same for the relay. So if you have a 6-person relay team, it's $1,500. If you're a solo, it's $200. You get some. There is stuff you get. So you get. Last year we had a ton of nutrition, and so they usually, which is always a challenge if you get 6 bottles of Prosecco to spray at the end, which of course if you're on your own with a backpack, you aren't taking that. So just give that to someone else. And for me that no, I don't think anyone's doing it for the swag. So it's a long way to run for a box of gels and 2 bottles of Prosecco. But yeah, there is a cost, and there is a process, and I think. And you have to write some stuff about why you want to do it, because particularly when you have something that's 40 people less historically, you kind of want people to follow those no spectators, no rules, come bring positivity to this thing, because it's hard. And I think sometimes if people are expecting a marathon to Saab experience or there's not really much to compare, but I certainly have seen in the relay races people coming with more of a world marathon majors expectation,
right?
Because that's what they've come from, and then finding out that there isn't the drink station every 10 kilometers, and they could read the rule book, read the road book, and see all that stuff. And it's not often, but I think just making sure people understand what they're buying into before they get there, it makes the experience better.
The mental buy-in for doing a relay is a lot less than signing up for 500 kilometers.
It's true, but you'd be surprised. The relay. We didn't want to talk a lot about the relay, but the relay is, everyone looks at it on Instagram, and it's all people standing on RVs in the desert with the sun going down, and it's wild, and they're like whooping, and there's tape all over the RVs.
Yeah.
The reality is that's about 10% of the speed project, even as a relay, is that. The other 90% is really long straight roads. It's hot. It snowed last year. It could be anything, and you're really tired, and people are and you're out there for 48 more hours. So I think a lot of people see that, and then they turn up and they go, it's actually quite hard. And it is, because the route through LA is easy, but the nearer you get to in the Mojave Desert, the nearer you get to Las Vegas, the more challenging the terrain becomes. And if you think you're getting a London or Boston marathon, and you get up to that, it's potentially a shock to the system.
So you don't get a medal?
You do get a medal, and you get the medals are one of the best things. But you get a $1 casino chip with TSP etched in it and a chain. If you do the relay, if you do the solo, you get 2 clear see-through dice that go on the other side of the coin, and they're the only ones that I've got them next to my bed. They're hanging up on a lamp, bedside lamp, and they just hang there. So I've got three sets of those now. And the first year I did it, there's always an after party, usually in some bougie day club in Las Vegas, and it was in the Wynn the first year, and Diplo was DJing, so it was pretty wild. So it's a pool party, Diplo's DJing. You go there, they give you your medal, and so I've got this thing, and I'm standing at the bar, and this guy comes up to me, and he's like, "Man, where do I queue up to get my dice?" And I was like, "Okay, so you go back to LA, and then you run on your own all the way back to Las Vegas, and when you get here, someone will be here with you to give you 2 red dice to get everything." And then he was like, and the penny dropped. That it was a very small group of people. I think 6 or 7 finishers that year had done and then he was just like, whoa, mic drop, and it was a little bit, and it was kind of cool. But So you get these, I mean, again, it doesn't matter what they cost, but they're everyone's individual. It's not even a recycled bloody tree metal thing. They're not like that. They're like unique, and everyone's different, and you get this, it costs $5 or something, but they're much more important than those, than the mass manufactured things out of China.
Yeah, totally. So this is your fourth year going back for the Vegas route. What you've kind of touched on the family and the community and stuff, but like, are there other things that keep drawing you back to the route? Like, what is the route itself like? Because it seems like it's maybe monotonous and boring in places and dangerous with the road in other places, and it seems like it's a real challenge in ways that you don't experience in like another 200 miler.
Yeah, and that's probably, there's some element of it that it's so different to other things that's in itself is an attraction. And you're right, and I've done 3 slightly different routes. The first route was a lot different to the second and third. The second and third were more a variation on each other. But the route I'm doing this year, I might as well say, is
let's get into that.
Yeah, because it makes more sense. I mean, I've been umming and ahhing about doing it since September, October last year, and it obviously is a big undertaking, and you need to commit to it. And I hadn't really committed to it even till the kind of February, and lacked a bit of motivation. The beginning of the year, lack of motivation, and so, but also doing the same thing over and over again. Isn't that? I can't remember who famously said it's the definition of insanity.
Yeah,
doing the same thing over again, expecting a different outcome. But so I was like to Niels, I want to come, but are you doing Salt Lake City is that the new thing? And he was like, no, we're not doing that. We did that last year. We've got something new. Do you want in? And I was like, yeah, okay. Don't without even sort of finding out what it was. I was like, yeah, I want to come back. I want to support it. I want to be involved. So tell me a little bit about it. And then like radio silence, which is the way, for about 3 weeks. And he came back and said, quite long. Not sure you want to do it. And I was like, how long? And he was like, 500, just under 450 miles or something. And I was like, okay, kilometers. Everyone works in kilometers and miles now, but sometimes kilometers is easier. So I was like, all right, that's like 6. So 400 is like 640 kilometers. So then I went on to Google and Komoot and Strava and had another look, and then I was like, okay. And then he said, the trick is also you now need to go to these certain places along the route. It's like some places you've got to visit.
So it's part of it. 600 kilometers plus.
So I think the shortest route you can possibly do is 645 kilometers, like 400 miles.
Bang on 400 nearly.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't looked. I mean, that was my initial look. And then you have to go to these places. You have to try and do this like detour to go to these places.
How many places?
I think there's 4 plus the start and the finish. So and they're all without wishing to ruin the surprise. They're all east of LA.
Well, remember, this will not come out before the start of the race.
No, then that's fine. I mean, like, I think the challenge is that, and we talked about this before that started. I know exactly where they are, but the relay teams which start later, I'll go into who's doing the solo, but I start on the Saturday and the relay team starts on the Thursday. So the chances are I'm going to get to some of those locations before. I hope so, because otherwise it'll take me longer than I thought. But I'll probably get to the early locations before they even leave LA. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how that's going to work, and I haven't really spoken to Niels about whether I can share those. They probably, to be honest, it was a riddle, and then to work out from there where the locations were to an extra dimension.
So this 600k,
so 690, I think, is my route, give or take. Could be longer, could be shorter.
And is that the route for all solos?
No. So it's back to the original ethos. No rules, no spectators. Pick your route. I don't think you can. I mean, this is pretty much as short as I can make it. I don't want to run anymore. I mean, I want to get to the finish without completely. And I don't know if I can run 690 kilometers. So if it's 608 kilometers, I don't know if I can run that either. But it sounds better than 690. So I've definitely tried to cut off stuff and cut off corners where I can cut off corners. Is like cut off a corner saves you 20 miles. But like that sort of thing, looking at the most direct route where at all possible. I plotted it on Komoot. But Komoot can be really funny with the way it actually maps out, and it sometimes puts you down it'll make you go right down a block, and obviously you don't, but it'll go right and then left, and then left, and then right, and you're back, and you just does a U shape on the road.
Yeah.
And I don't have the patience to go through the whole of my route and like change all those. So it may be that it's
because the route's so long.
Oh yeah, but it's a bit annoying because you can put 2 points and then it just goes, and you're like, no, it's just a straight road for 20 miles, but you've given me these detours. And I don't know whether that's. I feel like commute probably works better when it's like proper trail routes rather than roads. But so yeah, it's 690-ish kilometers. The aim would be to start on the Saturday and finish on the following Saturday. So 7 days. So it's around about 100 kilometers, 100 to 105 kilometers a day, I think.
And so there are 40 solos, and how many?
2. So
2 of the 40 are doing this.
Yeah, I don't think we're in addition to the 40 solos. I think we're part of the 40 solos. So a girl, Anya, who did it last year, who lives in LA, she is doing it this year. So we're keeping up with the 50% male female. I don't know. I haven't actually spoken to her about what her route is. I've been kind of focused on my own. But I think the challenge, the route goes east. It goes over the San Bernardino Mountains past Big Bear Lake. So it goes up to 2,500 meters, the ski resort. And there is a longer route which can avoid that, but I think it's a lot longer.
Okay.
Because this route was probably designed really for. I don't think they thought anyone was going to be crazy enough to do it solo. So it was designed for relay teams where if you've got 6 of you and you're running, they're not all going to be running 10 miles an hour, but they're running 8 miles an hour. Then you add another, do the maths, you add another 50 miles to it. It's not the end of the world. A couple of people do a few extra miles, a few extra stints, and they get it done. If you add 50 miles to your 500, your 400-mile run, it's a big chunk of change, right?
It is,
so it's potentially another day of running or moving. So for me, it's like, but it also creates its own logistical problems and things that are definitely I'm worried about because I don't really have a get out of jail free card. My route has to. I don't know it. Haven't run on it. Can't wreck it. So I have to go out and run it.
And how do you, mentally, how does this compare to the first time you did the solo?
It's much more like the first time because the first time I went over Mount Baldy, which in itself was I thought was a great idea, and
maybe for a tourist,
and maybe not in March because the challenge with the area is if you don't. I hadn't been to LA either before the first time. I hadn't been to Las Vegas, so you go and if people have never been, you go down to Santa Monica and Venice, and it's always sunny and the sun's out. And it's 20 degrees in March, and you're walking around, skateboarding everywhere, and people rollerblading, and you're like, this is amazing. 50 miles into the mountains, it's 2,000 meters, and it's snow, and I kind of naively was like, oh yeah, this route's going to be the shortest route. But I'm going to do some climbing, and yeah, no, I think about 20 hours in or something on Mount Baldy with sheet ice and snow and 40-mile-an-hour winds, trying to keep up on my feet, wearing a singlet and a brace vest, and questioning my life choices and worrying that I actually might not. I had no cell reception, and in fact, that particular stretch that I ran on, sadly, the actor, what's his name? Doesn't matter. British actor who lived out there died last year on a hike. He went out in January and they didn't find his body for 6 weeks.
Right.
So it's sketchy, and there's part of me that fortunately I've spent some time in the mountains in the high in Europe and can move on that terrain, but you don't really want to. It's a lot of risk at being there on your own without cell reception at midnight. There's no civilization there, and that was at the time was my. Do I turn back and go back to the hut that I saw with lights on, or do I push on? And probably the smart thing to do would have been to go back, but I didn't have a plan B. So, and this time I have no plan B either. So there's a section in after Big Bear Lake, in that area at the highest point, where it's definitely trail and it's definitely not drivable. And I definitely don't know what the conditions are going to be like. The weather forecast is looking like there's not going to be new snow, which could be good and bad. As you know, from your time in Chamonix, frozen ice, and then it freezes in the daytime, melts, and freezes at night, melts in the day. That surface is bad, and so there's definitely in a section there, probably 35k, where I'm just fingers crossed.
It feels like what you're getting mentally from this is somewhere in the region of that feeling that makes ultra runners go up the distance. The trying to tap into the unknown, because there's just something gratifying about trying something that you think you might be able to do.
100%. I mean, if I don't finish it, nothing ventured, nothing gained. It's like if I can't do it, then I'll obviously, nothing like that. Everyone's always says they're good about DNFing, but that feeling in the pit of your stomach never goes away, and you always think, could I have carried on? What should I have carried on? You can't really think about something this long and think of it like that, because you already won't finish. You have to be kind of 100% committed from the start. But also, I think the reason for doing it is the ultimate test of you and the mountain, the terrain. There's no one there to get you out of the problem. If you have to, and there will be situations, I can guarantee, where the route doesn't exist, or the way I want to go isn't possible anymore, because you just have mapped it. I've been there before. You map shit, and then you find out. I mean, Atacama was a great example where everyone chose. I didn't want to run. Atacama is 500 kilometers, and I think everyone apart from me went along the road. And I was like, I don't want to run alongside these they're not super busy, but the only things that are on those roads are like the trucks that transport all the ore from
across the country.
Yeah. And these, and they're massive, and the roads are in good condition, but they're not that wide. And I was like, that's not why I like running. I mean, I did Sabotathlon many years ago, and it was, I'm never sure I'd go back, because running on the side of the road with trucks and things for a long way it's not my vibe. There's going to be some times when I think we just go. So Atacama, we just got to bits where we had a red pickup truck, and there's a hole cut in the ground from the when it rained 20 years earlier, that cuts a crevasse and it's 10 meters wide or 10 feet wide, and you just can't. Vehicles like, that's it, as far as we can go. We'll have to find a way around. So you just go off, and
so you potentially
you just have to go
these types of things to figure out.
There were definitely still problem solving. Yeah, I mean, I won't have a crew, so that isn't the issue. But there'll be a fence or something that clearly someone puts a fence up. Since last time, I don't know how Komoot gets their maps. I don't really care, but there's going to be a situation when there's a fence or
anytime you create a route on anything, it's never exactly how that is.
There's quite a lot of solar powered. Obviously, it's in the desert. There's quite a lot of solar powered, and I don't know whether you end up running around the solar power, because you can't, because in the route it wasn't there, and so there's going to be that element of winging it. And that's kind of part of it. The excitement is you generally have to, what you don't want to end up doing, hopefully, is doing a ton of extra miles to go around something, rather when you thought you were going to go through it. But it is going to be what it is. My biggest worry is that bit when I come off the road on a Big Bear Lake. There's one route. I'm committed once I'm on that road. So I don't know what the route, the variation is around. If I can't go up that bit, probably 50 or 60 miles of continuing on the road into the ski resort, and then out on the main road there, which I think is what maybe some of the relay teams will do, because the section of trail is, I think, 40 kilometers. So mostly in the relay, no one's really up for doing 40k in one leg, because that's not the quickest way of doing it. So maybe they won't. I don't know. But my gut feeling is that people will probably run longer, because they can run faster than one person doing 40k up a mountain.
Let's talk a little bit about the mental game. What the hell do you think about when you're doing these things?
Well, you think about everything, because you've got a lot of time in your hands. So, I mean, everything and nothing. Sometimes you just can be in the, count your footsteps and sing. I often get 2 verses from some song. It's stuck in my head for 12 hours, and then hopefully someone's on a podcast and they're like, "Hey, do you want to do 30 minutes talking about it?" I mean, everything and nothing.
So whenever we do an Instagram live, it might pull you out of insanity for 10 minutes.
I tend to be if you go and do these things on your own, you kind of have to be comfortable with your own company, because you ain't going to see anybody probably for potentially 10, 12 hours a day. And particularly this time, because usually in the solo, when LA to Vegas, the normal solo, everyone ends up in the regular solo on the same road. I mean, everyone's coming into Las Vegas via Prim, which is just over the border in Nevada. So whether you do the full power lines big stretch, which is 60 miles, or whether you do the route that I do, which I've done the last 2 years, which is avoids power lines apart from the last 20 miles, which is kind of, you always end up at this junction and you can just see, last year I could see maybe 4 even head torches and there was 3 RVs parked up on the side and I hadn't seen anybody, but and you end up on that one stretch. And so, but this is not going to, I don't know whether I'm going to see Anya because I don't know what her route is, and then I suspect I'll get picked off by the relay teams which would be nice. Might you see someone,
some company,
briefly. Friday, question is how many relay teams can I get in before they all come past on? But the mind game is maybe I'm not smart enough to worry about it too much. Just switch off and put some podcasts on, some music on, move.
What do you have any? I'm asking these questions, but I'm also someone that I don't really have strategies either. The strategy is kind of more just deal with what's in front of you. Like, do you have any thoughts of, or can you reference any hard times in previous solos?
Not really. I mean, you go through lows. I mean, one of the biggest challenges is the distance between food. And, you don't have to have done a really long run to know what you feel like when you haven't had enough food. And it can be like, you can get hangry or you can just be like low energy and bit. But kind of experience gets you through those.
That low energy then feeds into the negative thoughts?
100%. I mean, like low blood sugar, you're angry at stuff yourself. You question why the hell you're doing it. But you kind of know that's what it's going to be like. And as long as you can keep moving, it gets better. I mean, it gets better when you get food. You just hope that it's not, too much longer. You hope that you get to the gas station, the diner, and it's, you've gone fast enough for it to be open. I mean, that, again, the big challenges for me are that big mountain in the beginning and potentially bears, and black bears are popular in that area, and I don't really want to, have to deal with them.
Hey bear.
I mean, they're not brown bears, but they're not grizzlies, but they're black bears and they're big and they're around. And the other
it's spring.
Yes, I'm hoping maybe it's been cold enough that they're still hibernating, but I don't know. And then the next section is just, I know where the diners are, but if I get there and it opens at 5 a.m., if it opens at 7 a.m. and I'm there at 5, I probably have to wait 2 hours to get something to eat because the next one is 2 kilometers away. And I've got some dehydrated meals and things to eat.
But you need to get to the gas station if you're going to sample the cheese and cherry delicacy.
The cheese and cherry, which is my go-to last year anyway, which is weirdest. Those things will survive a nuclear holocaust. But the great thing about it is you buy 10 of those and then 10 hours later they still
they're not, they haven't aged.
No, they'll last. I think they have like best before and it's like 2035 or something on them. But yeah, weird. But also, you've got it. The gas stations are usually good and they certainly look good on this one because it's such a wide open space that there are 24-hour gas stations. In the film that we did on the first speed project, I got to a vending machine to find it was cash only. So you kind of need to, and that was a big mistake. But I had a crew, and then we found out. I found a hose pipe, and it was water is all I wanted. But so having those, but it's a risk, and it's. If you've got 70k between points of food, you can't not. You have to stop.
Yeah. So, what type of food? What quantity of food? Like at any one time, what weight of food is going to be in your pack? Because like this Big Bear Lake section, this the trail section, you could be on this for like a day, right?
Yeah. So certainly, my plan is to just do it at night, which may or may not be the right plan. But it's kind of when I'm going to get there, and I think it's definitely 12 hours, maybe more. And I think there's probably 2 points to get food, but there's like an 8-hour gap between them. There's a lot of camping spots. There's a lot of car park. There's a lot of spots where you can stop, and that's probably what I'll use. I suspect there's going to be snow at that level because it goes up high. There's certainly enough. If it's not snow, there's a lot of water there. So the reason I have these dehydrated meals is principally for that stretch. So the challenge with doing it self-supported is the weight of your bag is a real detriment to your ability to run. Last year, my bag was about 22 pounds, 10 kilos.
And 10 kilos is just too much.
It's all right for the first day. And the first day is almost irrespective of which way you go, because typically you go north out of Santa Monica up into the hills, like the Las Vegas, like where all the big houses are, all the fancy places up there, well, the ones that didn't get burnt this year, but up through that section, which is not a massive climb, but it's maybe a few 500 or 600 meters up, and then you go around the back of the I think it's the San Andreas Mountains or whatever the LA mountains are there. So you kind of go up through Hollywood that way, around the back, and then it's flat. So you do your climb early, or you run through LA and go up, which is what Aaron, who won it last year, went through LA. But that section is 50 miles of flat. So the bag's not so bad when it's flat and when you're fresh.
Yeah,
you're going to be slower, but it's not. But it's later.
You're not having to lift it up
later on. I mean, this year's we can talk about gear later, but like my pack is bigger this year, but I think I've got less weight in it, and I certainly want to try and have less weight in it later on.
Well, I mean, let's just bring that in at this point anyway. So you're carrying some dehydrated meals. So have you weighed out how much food you're going to be carrying at any point?
No, I mean, and the answer is not enough. I've never got enough food. You just
but will you be thinking, I need to have on me food for 12 hours, 24 hours at any one time? And then if you come across a gas station
yeah, I mean, I think the first 130k, no problem. You run through urban areas. I'm not going to, there'll be places to stop, gas stations. Probably won't take any additional, I won't take any gel, I won't take anything. I'll just buy Gatorade and Snickers and whatever you need to run through residential area. And then I'll probably sleep in a motel. I've got a motel booked for that first day. Maybe I think the motel's at like 135 kilometers. And so I'll stay there for maybe 3 to 4 hours, sleep, eat, shower. Again, it's all these things like, all this stuff takes time off sleeping. So if I shower, I'll shower, I'll get in the shower, I'll get out of the shower. It's not going to be good, and you just get in until you feel clean and get in the bed, because you want to minimize that time that you're just wasting on doing things. And then I think I've probably got about 30k before you then, and I know there's a place I can get food until about midnight, and then I can get, and then once I'm out of that, I'm in the thick of it, and I've got the three dehydrated meals, which I don't think I'll need 3, but we used them last year on a 160k run around TORQ, and they were super good. Just the fire pot chili con carne thing. You just I don't know what they do to them to make them, but they're super tasty. There's a ton of, they think they're filling. There's not masses of calories in, but there's enough protein in there to make you feel full. The reality is, doesn't matter. You get to a gas station, you go in, you sideswipe $70-80 of junk food on whatever you want. The great thing about US is those gas stations are just everything. Beef jerky and microwave burritos. You can get a ton of calories, but you spend so long between the places. The minute you get there, you're starving, and you go in, and then you obviously stuff your face. You're so hungry, you just eat like $40 of the stuff that you've got, and then then you've got $40 left to get. And you realise that halfway through the next stretch, you're out of food again, and you're hungry, and you kind of the obvious answer is just buy twice as much stuff, but then you've got to carry it, and the weight is a consideration, and so I think it's one of those things you just know you're going to carry. You're going to get half the amount of calories you really want, and you just suck it up, and that's part of doing it solo. And you just know that maybe you put Snickers in there as a get out jail free card that you hope you don't have to use when things get bad. But yeah, it's just stuff from the gas stations. You just can't. I'd love to be able to carry 200 Morton gels and just keep going.
Did you not carry Morton gels on one of them?
I did. Yeah, I think I did 100 and something Morton gels in Atacama. But we had, we had Nikki as my crew person, and we had a film crew and pickup truck. And if our guy who was our fixer there, he had his way, I would have been eating like a king every day. But the reality was, I did the first 2.5 days on gels. So, I mean, they just provide you with a very simple form of energy. Yeah, I mean, I just got to, I don't have a lot of, my biggest issue, I don't have a lot of plan Bs and the whole of this for food, the route. I'm kind of committed. Once I start, I'm kind of out of LA, I'm kind of in for it, which may mean I can't finish. I don't know what happens if I can't finish, because it's not like, it's anywhere to
turn around and go back the other way.
Go to the nearest town and get the
It's America. You
the
can't even get
non-existent. I mean, there's no bus routes. I mean, it literally is. It is the middle of nowhere. I mean, probably Joshua Tree. Probably there's a big stretch between Joshua Tree and the finish that it's pretty remote. Could be what it'll be. But we took kit wise. The important thing, and I learned the hard way from the second year, is if you're carrying that much kit, you've got to get a pack that gives you enough support to carry it.
What size of pack? Is it the same one that you're using?
No, I'm using the bigger. So last year I used the North Face Trail Light 24.
Yeah.
Which I think comes up bigger than 24. So the previous year I used they do the Verto 27, which is actually designed for like fast and light alpine climbing. It's actually super good, and I use it as like a commute bag and everything. And it is literally.
You use it a lot.
Oh yeah, and my girlfriend Anna has them as well. And we love them. They're just the straps are thin, but they're not. They've spread the weight a lot, and it's just one bag, no pockets. It's got a zip. He's just got it's super lightweight. It was designed to almost weigh nothing. The downside about it, of course, it doesn't have a waist strap. So the 24 the Trail Light 24, which is the part of the North Face all mountain purpose kind of range. So like it's designed to work on a mountain bike, on ski touring, on cross country skiing. So it fits really well. It's snug to the body, and it has a waist strap that you can take some of the weight off the shoulders. It's not a really big waist strap, but it's enough. But they brought out a 30-litre version, which doesn't feel 6 litres bigger than the 24, but it's definitely got a bit more capacity, and it's got a bit more ability to expand on the outsides. So an issue with this project can be water. And the first year I did it was 40 degrees and nightmare. The last 2 years have been much cooler. Last year I said it snowed. I didn't experience that, but it snowed late on, because you still have to go in high on the way to Las Vegas. And once that rain comes in across from the coast, it gets high and then obviously cools and you get snow. So there was snow. But I think this route looks like, certainly to start with, the water isn't an issue. But the bag will take 2-litre bottles on the side and expanding pouches. So there's capacity which means I don't then need to worry about bladders and all that jazz.
Yeah.
So that's my plan, because everything you carry that you're not using is extra weight. So it's like, how can I minimize everything so that I don't need it, I don't have it, and then chuck stuff away as you go. I mean, I love Stance socks. They're my go-to. They've been my go-to for 10 years. I've got 5 new pairs, and I'll just wear them for a day, take them off, throw them in the bin. I mean, it's crying shame, because you basically throw a pair of socks that have been worn once, but so
nobody would pick them up after you anyway.
Probably not. No, just leave them wherever. Leave them somewhere, and but it's not much, but it's it'll be. I'll have to start with them, of course. So maybe I've got to start with 300 grams with the socks, but by the time I get to the end, I'll have 300 grams less in my bag when I'm less tired, rather than adding. And but I'll eat the dehydrated food before I get to the end, so those won't be in there. And just trying to get rid of stuff because you just get the nerves and things it traps in the shoulders, and it's almost to the point where that's more painful than your legs. So
we're talking 6, 7, 8, 10 kilo bag.
I'm hoping to be around 7 as it stands, and then plus food. So hopefully no more than 8, because that'll make a big difference.
What's in the pack? Like what gear? Is there any mandatory gear?
No rules, right? No rules, no spectators. I mean, so the bag, I spent a lot of time on this, and had the experience of doing this has been really helpful. So I kind of break it down into a couple of areas. One is the sleep night situation, and that's a kind of key one, because there isn't motels to stay in for every night. So I'm going to do at least 2 nights on the trail side. I'm not doing them in the mountain because it's minus. I think the forecast is for tonight is -6, -7. Too dangerous, and dangerous without the heavy, the 3-season sleeping bag. But all I do have is bivy bag, and then if anyone's seen the films I did with the North Face, they will see me hiking at night in this. It's called AMK, all mountain kit. I think I can't remember what they called it, but it was basically the tie-ins kit that they designed for Everest. And basically the original remit was, if money was no object, what would you make to go? And so it's a big layered system. But they're like layer 3 is this baffled down. So there's a baffle, there's no baffle, there's baffle, and it comes in a jacket and a trousers. But what it does mean is you can, when you're standing, or in this case laying, the baffles lay on top of each other so that you create a block. When you're moving, the baffles move and allow some of the air to pass through. So you can actually do some exercise in it. If you've ever gone out running, trying to run in a down jacket and trousers, and it's not really cold, you realize you just boil in the bag instantly.
Yeah.
So it's a good opportunity to wear that at night when you're moving, but then just pull into a bivy bag. It's also like, if you like, a cycling bag. So pull out that. I have a 3/4 mat from Thermarest, that's the super light, nano light one, that also takes about 20 breaths, and that goes up. So put that inside the bivy bag, crawl in, get a couple.
I think I have a same mat.
Yeah.
It comes down to
it's a little bit annoying that it's a bit short, because sometimes your feet get a bit cold. But the trick is, probably to continue to wear shoes, or just slacken them off and keep them off. Keep your feet off the ground. Or put your bag underneath, or something in the bag that just gives you some insulation.
I put my feet in a dry bag.
Yeah, any of that stuff. And last year I didn't use the same bivy bag. I just got the North Face again. Give me one, but theirs is just a bit overkill. It's heavier. I bought the Alp Kit Hunker or something. They're cheap. They're like £50. It's got good breathability, because I used the emergency ones, which are great. And if anyone's out running and they in the remote areas, get yourself one of those like fist size, because the foil blankets, are useless. They're okay, but this thing's like a foil blanket, but you can climb in. And then so I use those, but they don't breathe. So you eventually fall to sleep and your legs hurt, and then you wake up and you're like, there's a lot of condensation in there, and you spend the next. It's not the nicest.
It's got to be hard getting up as well.
Your legs, everything hurts so much, you barely sleep, and so you can't find a comfortable spot, because your leg. It's usually, for me, ITB, you're like screaming, and you lay on one side and it hurts, and you lay on the other side, you lay on your back, and last year it was very windy, so it's not a lot of places to get out of the winds, so you try and find some bushes, and then you find the winds through the bushes, and the foil blanket's like rustling in the wind, and you're cold, and but anything is better than nothing. So you just you lay there for semi-asleep for an hour, and then you're like, this is useless, so you get up and then you move for 2 hours, and then you have another go. And
do you stick in earplugs or anything?
No, I mean, sometimes I put my AirPods in, because you get some noise cancelling, and like no music, just noise cancelling in there, and it's I think this time, with the combination of the motels and the I quite like the wild sleeping, but it does help that if you can find a spot where you're not being blasted off the face of the earth with the wind. That's the challenge of the desert. It's cold and windy often at night, and there's nowhere to find a place to get out of that wind, or can be. So but that sleep kit is pretty good. And then obviously I've got 2 pairs of gloves for this time, so I think that could be cold on that mountain section. The double gloves, and then the rest of the stuff, one set. I mean, socks is my kind of one luxury. When you put socks on.
Multiple pairs of socks. We've got the bivy, we've got the Thermarest mat, we've got the kind of the suit jacket type and bottoms type of thing.
And then one set of clothing for the rest of the week. Whatever I start in is what I finish in.
Okay.
1 pair of shoes.
2 pairs of gloves.
2 pairs of gloves for warmth. Yeah, I start in shorts and a t-shirt. I've got a waterproof jacket. I've got a waterproof poncho that I might, which wasn't designed for this. It's a fashion piece, but it's still got a 3-layer membrane. That's a beautiful thing. I mean, the North Face is that even their like fashion stuff that
still functional.
They don't. The kind of trail inspired stuff that's where people wear around London is all actually got great technology behind it. So I have a poncho that would go over a backpack. I need to let it. I'll make a decision on the weather. If the weather looks like I'm not going to get rain, then I won't take it.
And how predictable can that weather be? I don't think you've had rain any previous year, have you?
No, not really. It's been cold, but no, that's not true. Second year, rained solidly for the day, sideways. I bought a poncho. I didn't take any waterproofs that year, and then I got to after the previous year being 40 degrees and like dying from the heat. Yeah, we got there and I didn't have any waterproofs, so I went to REI and bought one of those like hiking ponchos. I was like, don't anyone ever take a photo of me wearing this thing. It was the least cool. It was like big, thick vinyl, like brown poncho. And
Glastonbury type of job?
Yeah. I mean, like just awful. Like a through hiker. Yeah. People are doing the PCT and they get those and they go over the top of their 100-litre backpacks. It was huge. And the wind was so strong I just spent the whole time fighting.
You were a seal?
Inside out. And but people would stop and they're like, random people would be like, are you okay? Do you want a lift? Like a lot of people. It was pouring rain, and I'd be like, yeah, I'd love a lift, but that's not really part. There's no rules, but one of the rules is the non-existent rules is don't get in RVs and don't get in cars with people and get a lift to the nearest town. Fortunately, the weather got better because I don't think I would have finished that year if it carried on raining because I just had a backpack and me and I was soaking wet through to the skin, and you're like, can't go on like that for 4 days. But so it's a lot of like ifs and buts, and some decisions need to be made, like maybe later this week on that poncho, not poncho, because I don't want to carry it. I don't want to carry anything I'm not going to use. If you haven't got it, you haven't got it. So it's a little bit of that this like challenge. I think with the stuff I've got, if I can get over the mountain, I think things weather-wise should get better. I mean, they're not that they're looking bad, but they should get warmer. And then you don't want to be carrying a ton of warm kit while the sun's suddenly 30 degrees and you're baking. So, and you got it on your back, and it's just more weight. So it's a bit of a like, there's not a lot of margin for error in kit, in route, in booze, it's kind of, that's the kind of beauty of, I guess, fast and light in the mountains or fast and light on the ultra trail, is to try and pare it back as much as you can. I'm not cutting my handle from my toothbrush, but
one of the beautiful things about the no rules also means that you don't have the mandatory kit, but also that you can bin those socks. So you could potentially have a cheap poncho and just.
I mean, you could throw everything away. You could take poles for the climb and then chuck them in the bin. I've got some previous form of like breaking poles, so maybe that's the answer. You just take an old set. You could take an old set of poles, like mismatched poles or something. I mean, I'm not taking poles. I know people love them, but I don't think there's enough climbing to make any sense to because you've got to carry them.
Yeah,
this is the other thing. You've got to everything and I don't think I move better on flat ground with poles. I mean, I move better on the mountains with poles, but
totally.
But maybe for 40k because the most of the climb is on the road, and maybe, but I don't think it's steep enough. Or I think I can't remember somebody. Didn't Jason Coops do a study on what grade? I think he did it in the lab, so on a treadmill. But I think it got to a point where the weight penalty outdid the use of the poles until you got to like 24 degrees or something. So it's one of those things where
I think it was actually lower than that. Kelly Henninger also did something along those lines as well.
I don't think the Jason Coops one was. I don't think it was particularly concrete, but I mean, there is always that if you have to carry it, there's a weight penalty, right? I mean, if you're not using it, then you carry it, and yeah. So you can. You're right. I mean, there's no rules. I also wouldn't like leaving stuff that
totally
disposing. What am I do? Leave it in a dustbin or something. That's not really traveling all that way. Unconscious already have a carbon footprint of me getting to. My carbon footprint when I get there is pretty small because I'm not getting any vehicles, am I? But I've still got to also get back from. And there's always a price. There's a environmental price for us to go and do events. It's not carbon free. So throwing things away that. Even buying bottled water annoys me. There's not really a way to minimize, because I remember last year being quite pissed off about my probably 12 plastic bottles a day, because you buy Gator, there's not really any option. If I could buy powder and buy water from a tap, then I would, but a lot of the water in those places you do see is not potable. Rest stations on the side of the road with no facilities is just a toilet, and water's probably not
for consumption.
But I, one of the things I do have this year also is a water filter on my soft flask. I think that gives me an option for really for water that's not potable. You can at least filter it.
One of the other things you need to carry, which is probably significant weight, not that you have to carry, but being that you are a photographer and a creator, you need to carry some kit. So run through what camera, audio equipment you're carrying, and also touch on what you're hoping to do with it.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to try and tell that's the story of my journey, which it's always so much easier to sit here now and talk about what I want to do than 4 days in with 400 kilometers in my legs and feeling tired. And obviously eats into some of the rest time that I would have if I stop and do it. But my intention is to try and put out some content, a reel perhaps per day for each day. So I need to have something to capture that. So I'm carrying a drone. And again, I looked at options. I've got several drones, but I'm carrying the sub 250 gram Mini 3 Pro, which also means I haven't got to worry about the restrictions about flying it because it's underweight. I mean, I have the necessary documentation, but it shouldn't cause any problems. Again, you can get the controller that works with your phone, which is a lighter option. But my biggest issue last year is keeping everything charged.
Yeah,
even your phone. Batteries are life is pretty good, but you can get to a point where I've got these motels that I'm staying in, so I have an opportunity to charge stuff. So last year, at times I struggled to keep things charged. I remember sitting in a like a garage, on the ground in the back, plugged into the wall socket with one plug and like multiple wires coming out of it to try and keep my phone charged, because it's kind of my lifeline. And two, if you don't know the route, it's also potentially, it's charging your phone, charging a watch, and so and charging drones. All that. So I end up, I think I've got about 600 grams worth of battery packs. I've got 3 20,000 milliamp hour battery packs, which I probably will towards the end ditch.
Yeah,
because they're heavy.
that's
10% of my, just under 10% of my bag is battery packs.
Yeah,
but you need to keep access to the world, even in those remote places. So I have those. These days, one great advantage is everything charges much faster than it used to. So you can plug things into gas station charging ports. But I also have a GAN fast charger. So I have a GAN fast charger for the wall, which will charge 3 things at once. I have 3 battery packs. I have a drone controller. I haven't gone for the drone. I've gone for the drone with its own screen. So I haven't got to worry about my.
I have that drone as well, and the controller. It's
not perfect.
Small,
it's not perfect.
But it takes up a bit of space.
I've used it a lot, and it takes up a relatively small amount of space, and I can get it up, I'm taking one battery, so any content I produce is going to be get it up, get it out, 2 minutes. Can I get that thing up and down in 2 minutes? It takes just one shot for a reel. Let's go and get on, and of course, got to keep moving. So that, and then I have I shoot professionally with Nikon cameras, but my kit now is all pro bodies and things, and then the downside of them is they're pretty heavy. But I also have a holiday camera, so I have a Leica Q, which is a few years old, but like super nice and it's a lot lighter. So I'll take stills with the Leica Q, and I took it last year. One of the things that you asked earlier about keeping your kind of head in the game, but sometimes if you are a bit disillusioned, sometimes getting the camera out, taking some photos is enough just to kind of give you something that isn't thinking about how far you've got to go. There's, it is real. The scenery out there is crazy Americana, and there's a lot of random abandoned buildings and road signs with bullet holes in them, and stuff. There's just stuff that as someone who lives in London, you just never see, because thank God we don't have gun ownership like there, and just it is old Americana, and you are in a desert, and there is a lot like leftover stuff that was there before all the freeways, which now open up and get everyone to Las Vegas super fast. The old roads have got all the old ghost towns and things, so it's quite cool. And it's just a case of keeping your mind fresh, but I want to try and edit it as well while I'm going. So I've got this kind of like, I'll either get fed up and they'll start and there won't be any more, and I'll do them at the end.
We'll see.
But the intention is to try and at least edit something, and it might just be I end up doing stills and edit those because it's a lot easier than putting together a reel on the go.
So phone, charging bricks, drone, controller,
stills camera.
And I have a camera,
and then I have a DJI Pocket 3 gimbal,
the Osmo,
the Osmo, which is great, and it doesn't weigh a lot. But there's always bits like there's ND filters and all those sorts of things that you have to end up in, and I know they'll drive me insane because I'll be 2 days in and then they'll be in some pocket somewhere because that's what I thought.
How can you be bothered thinking about an ND filter 3-4 days into this?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see whether I'll suddenly be like, yeah, guys, it's all on auto now. Everything's on auto. It's all no ND filters allowed. But yeah, I kind of have a kind of creative idea about you just need some establishing shots on the drone. So 2 or 3, put it up, spin it around something that looks interesting, put it down, run along a bit, talk a bit to the camera, shoot some B-roll of things you see, stick it together.
So you're thinking try and get like day one vlog, day 2 vlog, vertical video.
But vertical video, 30, 45 seconds, something like that. Nothing crazy. I'm not going to worry about if it's longer or shorter. It'll just be what it is. Just cut some chunks out and see what happens, and put something out, put a voiceover on it, and that's my ambition. Whether it's true, whether it happens or not. I mean, I was out in India shooting for someone else who's running, so I wasn't running, but we did something similar, despite getting in a car and supporting someone for 100 plus k's a day, and it's doable. But at the time, I wasn't running as much. Well, I was running 30k a day, not 100. So it's it's a case of how long can you.
There's a chunk of time needed for that, because if I think about my own process, scrap filming it, like that's other time, but just in the edit process, that type of short form reel type of thing could take, on a quick day, half an hour. But it could also, like, you could spend 2 hours on it if you were.
And agreed. And I've got a few things that hopefully will speak. So I fortunately have the new iPhone 16 Pro that came today, which is obviously USB-C. So I have card readers that go straight to USB-C, so I can pull cards from cameras and from drones. And instead of having to like sync them, you can upload them.
Yeah,
I won't shoot anything in log, so everything will be, because I don't want to waste my time color grading. So I'll shoot everything in log straight into the phone, probably take an SSD and move things across onto that, and try and manage the data that way.
And then if your voiceover is really just talking through what's on screen, then that also is simple to do as well.
Yeah, and maybe, so maybe we'll see. I mean, the voiceover probably I'll work it out as I go. But the trick is a bit of pre-prep about making sure that probably can use a Premiere Rush, and just make sure that those templates are set up. You just drop them in. If you're going to put music, work it out before you go. Pick 7 songs. Doesn't really matter, does it? Something. And if I can find trending audio, then that makes sense from an Instagram point of view. But
it's all going to change once you go over there, and the phone geolocates you to the States.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a bit of time later this week to kind of find something, and do that. I think the better way to do it is to find the trending audio, get the MP3, and then apply it rather than apply it through Instagram. I'm not sure. Actually, I say that I'm not sure whether that is the best approach, but I need to have a quick look. It does recognize the audio track in Instagram, even if you don't add it in Instagram. If you download the content with the audio already on it, it will, assuming it's in the Instagram, so you can just put everything in one and then transfer it across. But you're right. I mean, even in Instagram upload, by the time you upload it, put your any words in the content thing, tag things. That in itself can be 15 minutes, right? Of just that annoying process of, and then you get it wrong, and then you're like, oh. So I mean, it's not like I'm short time. If I can do it while I'm walking along, and then I'm still walking. Yeah, I mean, that's the ambition, is not to stop and do it, or maybe when you stop for something to eat in those few places, just try and do. Everything's going to be about doing 2 things at once, but not stopping too long to get to the finish sooner rather than later.
A couple more things that we'll touch on. Can I get you in order?
I'm good, thank you.
I guess we'll touch on the nutrition thing just so we can wrap that up, and then we'll want to talk a little bit about training. Do you have any? I know you need to be very flexible on the type of meal and what's available to you and things like this, but are you trying to hit any particular goal of, if I'm moving in for 24 hours, I need to hit 500 grams of carb, or I need to be making sure I get some protein or anything like that?
Just a short part of the interview. No, I mean,
I need to make sure I have a cherry and cheese tart.
Honestly, the whole thing is everything's to feel. I mean, like, won't have enough calories. I don't think I can, carry. I'll get some high calorific things in there, but I won't be looking at labels in this. A lot of that time, I just need to get in and get out and get the food and get on the road. And so I'll buy a mix of savoury and sweet stuff, and too many bottles of Gatorade, and because that you're going to get one of those 32-ounce Gatorades is probably 500 calories, 600 calories in one of those things. So I'm not counting it, because you just don't get anywhere near where you need to be, and you just end up then being negative about the things. But instead just being like, okay, I know that burrito is going to be super processed, so it's going to have a load of fat in it. I mean, again, we won't be going fast. You can eat, body can process anything that you stick in it. Often I just buy 5 single cheeseburgers from McDonald's. I hate I would never eat McDonald's here, but they taste equally as bad when they're hot when you buy them, and then they do 6 hours later when they've been in your bag.
Really?
Well, I mean, they're not amazing food, but they don't taste terrible 6 hours later.
Yeah,
and you know that there's
you're getting plenty of salt.
Plenty of salt in there. I mean, you just the thing about these things is you go. I mean, it's about movement rather than about running. And I'm sure there'll be people watching this going, it's just pointless. It is a long fucking walk. I'm not taking away from that. I'm not telling anyone I'm like some. I can run when I need to run. I can run, but this is not. This is about using your energy you have in an efficient way possible to get as fast as you can. I mean, there's no doubt it's about speed, but you literally, and the mistake some people make, and is that when they start this solo, is they go and run the first 100 miles in 24 hours. And fair credit to Aaron, who won it last year. He ran 100 miles a day for 3 days, just fractionally slower than that.
Yeah.
So it can be done, but for a lot of people, they do 2 things. They go way too fast early on, and then they get edema in their lower legs, and their feet, their ankles swell up, and they can barely get shoes on, and they're sore, and every footstep is painful. And they just, because they could run fast, and we're talking, there's some people, David Kilgore, who won the first year, who's a 220 something marathon runner who works for On. He ran the second year. I think him and a guy from Tracksmith ran they did 150 miles in 30 hours or something, and then both of them, overuse injury.
Yeah.
Well, in fairness, the Tracksmith guy was never going to finish, but David, he had no intention of running to the end. He didn't have time. But David got overuse injury and then pulled out. You have to avoid the overuse injury from banging the ground for 4 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. And so, it's more about the movement. The whole concept is more about, what food can I get? How efficiently can I move so that whatever I can get, I have enough to get to where I'm going? And so you end up, I'll run as much as I can, but I'll also be conscious that if I run more, I'll use more energy.
Yeah.
I'll need more food. I'll need more sleep. My legs potentially get more damaged. So it's a real balance, a real tightrope walk to run when you can, but not to run too much that you're expending energy you don't have any replenishment from. So you can kind of get into this. Certainly the first day, I'll run first 30 kilometers on and off without, the US is kind of annoying, and because there's lots of streets and and you end up traffic lights a lot, and you have to wait, and even if you run across, it's often they're really busy. So there's an element of you're slowed down by that stop-start approach. But I suspect the last 300, 400 kilometers won't run a mile, because it's that point you just present. It's a bit like the death zone of Everest. You cannot continue to move indefinitely with the amount of calories that you're taking on and the amount of movement you're doing. So you're in decline. So it's how long can you manage that decline that you get to the end before your body just says no more. Yeah. I don't know. I can do 6 to 90. I don't know.
And that's the beauty of it.
So, but I still have to. Everything is like managing the next section, not by managing now, I can manage the next bit. And so it's just a case of just being, sort of being quite present about what am I doing? How fast am I going? How do I feel? Do I need to stop to get some weight off my feet because I've got 300 kilometers, 400, whatever to go? And it's about kind of managing yourself. And I think the mistake that a lot of the other solo runners make is that they go too hard because they can run 4-minute Ks, 5-minute Ks all day long, whatever. They go and then run 4:30 for the first 100 miles, and then that's it. I hope that doesn't happen, but I guarantee you there'll be some people who don't manage the legs, the damage to the physical musculoskeletal damage that you create by just running. if you do, and it isn't forgiving because it's largely road. It's not like a mountain with soft or soft and hard ground. It's like
Variation.
concrete, and it's just concrete and stepping on, and it's more of like a real gently, everything is kind of, don't do anything crazy because you'll pay for it 2 days later, 3 days later. So you just have to be patient and be present, I guess. It's like, be mindful of what you do now costs you threefold, fourfold, and can you keep getting enough calories in and move quick enough to get there before your body says no more.
I was talking to you yesterday about training for this type of thing, and you have been Strava Dark for a number of weeks, a number of months, and I'm not saying it's anything to do with TSP. It's just you come on and go off it, but I've no idea what your training has looked like. So what has it looked like for this?
So I hadn't really committed to this properly until relatively recently, so about a month ago. So, but I was training for London Marathon, and I don't think personally, this is not my first rodeo at this distance. I have a lot. I mean, I don't always put everything on Strava. Sometimes I run without a watch. Sometimes I just can't be bothered. I like it. I don't get caught up in it too much because I think it can be for me a distraction, or it can be you end up over looking at numbers that I don't think is actually helpful. So I tend to go on and off, and so often my annual mileage isn't accurate to what's on Strava. It's always short. I want to say I feel like I was probably like 6,000 kilometers previous year, which was a bit more. I was a bit more consistent. Last year I was off for quite a long time, and then this year I haven't done much. But I mean, I think I want to be like, say, I'm about 12,000 kilometers so far probably this year, but actually with more, which is probably less than usual. But because I was running London, I still am running London, but another boring story. But not in anger. I was training with more intensity than I would have done if I was just doing the speed projects, because you don't need to run fast. You just need to run, just to keep moving.
Yeah.
And we've done some things. Anna and I ran across Mallorca a couple of weeks ago with very heavy bags, which is more like a strength. That was 130k or something with 12 kilo bags. So that was and 6,000 meters climbing. So quite a big up and down. So it's been more like that. I was in Gran Canaria for the best part of a week and got some miles in there. So it's been not on Strava, but it's been, I don't think certainly it's not on there for any secrets. It was just, just sometimes having some respite from everyone knowing what you're doing is kind of a good thing as well. And I'll stick this, probably first ones I'll stick on this year will probably be this when I start next week, and I'll post something on there. I'm probably going to run with 2 phones, simply for one route, so I've got one track for the whole route. It's quite hard. It's also a pain in the ass when you get back and you have to piece together 27 different. I mean, the watches are good, and I love the Apple Watch Ultra 2, but it's not known for its. I'll get 13 or 14 hours out of it.
Okay, right.
Which is not bad. It's not Garmin-esque, but for the other 51 weeks of the year when I don't run the speed project, it does everything I need it to do. So there's some limitations on the Apple Watch Ultra. Not that they bother me, but last year, you end up with quite a large number of files that you have to try and piece together. I'd quite like to have one long run and post it, fingers crossed, Saturday after, and here it is, 700 kilometers in one big long Strava run, consistently.
It would be lovely to see, but can you imagine? Because the longer the route, the longer it seems to take Strava to load on activities.
Well, yeah, and I've had some problems uploading files on there before. I guess if it's just one file on the Strava app though running in the background, which is probably what I'll do, and just take everything off the phone. It's really boring this bit, but take everything off the phone, just run Strava. No SIM card in it. Just run it because it will run the GPS only. Yeah, and then it shouldn't run the battery down. I know, we'll see. I have to keep my eye on it. Again, it's just despite being out there on your own with not much to do other than move forward, you'd be amazed how these things suddenly you get tired and you forget about charging stuff. Yeah, and you forget that your phone battery is nearly flat, and then you're like, it's amazing how suddenly your life admin goes out the window despite having nothing other to do than life admin and move. So yeah, I don't know. It's the training will be the training. I mean, how do you people every time I do a talk or a podcast, someone says, what's the training plan for a speed project? And the answer is start 20 years ago and run and don't get injured. Eventually you end up with a V8 diesel engine that kind of goes on forever. It doesn't necessarily get you there the fastest. You're not winning any races, but you can hold your own and it's pretty bulletproof. Well, I'd like to get to the end and like have feet that didn't look like something from Lord of the Rings and legs that don't look completely swollen and terrible. Yeah, I think it's a challenge because there's how you could do a ton of miles and then be really tired going into it. I feel the positive is I feel like she's quite fresh, and I feel like the training that we've been doing has been a bit lower mileage but a bit more intensity, and that's felt good.
It's got to be a nice change up from last year, because last year you did 3 big long.
So I did Atacama in late October and early November, and then which was good in so many ways because then ran Speed Project 4 months later off the back of quite a lot of volume. And so I feel like, but I mean, if you look at the Strava data that I've got, I feel like numbers wise, I'm probably about where I was last year when I did it, which was actually a good place. I mean, as I said, I was moved well enough to get to be in the middle, in the front-ish of the pack, behind some quite capable runners who had cruise. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, the whole thing's just different, but I feel I've got no aches and pains and no niggles, and my body feels good. It's just a case of, which means I can then just focus on the uncontrollables. Everything else is kind of controls, and the kit's not perfect, but it's as good as it's going to get, I think, given the conditions and the weight and things is lower than I had last year. So there's definitely any changes, and I do think doing the same thing over again in terms of training. I don't think training is particularly complicated for most people. Go and do some easy runs, very easy. Go and do some hard runs, very hard, and go and do some long runs. And if you're doing more, the longer you're running in your race, the more perhaps you need to do 2 long runs a week. Saturdays and Sundays, but over that framework, be mindful that everything takes recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And my approach has always been, this: how do you eat an elephant? One mouthful at a time. I'd rather do 10 runs in a week and do 2 times 20k than 1 times 40. It makes more. I mean, I think I'll recover better from 2 times 20 on the same day or 2 days after each other than I will do in one big chunk. And I suspect that's true for most people. But there's also that people feel they've got to go out and do a 50. If you're doing a 100-mile race, you've got to go and do a 50-mile run.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but then you're super tired.
I think, but I honestly,
depends on people, individuals, and there's no wrong or right answer. But
I do think it's people with less experience that might do that, because there's a confidence factor.
Yeah, no, I agree.
In doing that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just
as you said earlier on, you've done a lot of these things before.
Yeah.
There's mental strength coming into this, knowing, like, I've done variations of this. I don't
know I can do 690 kilometers, but I don't can do 500.
Yeah.
So I'm not thinking this. This is all.
You've slept a lot at a gas station.
I know how to get to adapt for those situations. Whether I can do it physically is enough. I don't know. My body will tell me. But yeah, the mind, and I get that. If you're a first time marathon runner, you probably want to run over 20 miles, 22 miles, maybe. Whether that's the perfect answer for you physiologically might not be the best thing to do, particularly if you're relatively new to running, to go and do almost as far as you're going to run 4 or 5 weeks before. But if you've been running for 20 years and you run marathons for fun regularly, doing 20 miles on a Saturday, your body has built up its ability to recover from that effort. So,
and also mentally,
mentally you don't
do it.
You're like, it's just a number. And most of the time it's a number for everybody, but I get it, how the number can be overwhelming and but one of the things about this Speed Project, which I go back to, and it's not about me because I'm fed up talking about me, is a number of people last year, and I love this, who rocked up with 500 kilometers on the ahead of them, and they'd be like, longest I've run is 100k. I was like, that is wild. Conceptually, you're going to run. 100k is quite a long run, and lots of people will be like, there's no reason anyone should have to do 100k. It doesn't make you any better than someone does a marathon or a 50k. But 500k, if you've only done 100, it's like 5 times. It's 5 times longer than a very long run. And and I was just like, and those people did super good. I think there's a girl with Boogie Down Bronx I can't think of her name, but she went and did it, and like she was a day later than I was, but she came in and she was like smiling, and she didn't have destroyed legs, but she'd had this like crazy adventure along the way. It's just one of the things about this big project is just this idea that maybe you can, maybe you can't, but I think it's one of those sort of groups of people who it can look cliquey and it can look like elitist, but it's actually, when you get into the inner sanctum of it, it's completely opposite. There's some really good runners, and almost all of them are telling other people they can do better than they've done, and that's a little bit unusual. Most of the time, if you hang around marathon crowds enough, people stick to the fast guys are with the fast guys, and they're obviously people. I'm not saying no one's being encouraging. I think quite the opposite. But it's a different group. It's been, you've got 220, 225 guys looking at someone who's not fast but is about to do 500 kilometers and just blows their mind. That's in itself is quite unique, I think. And that's probably what keeps pulling me back, is that you get this unique group of people who are all a bit crazy, but all kind of like rooting for each other. And it's a level playing field for everyone, despite there being a very unlevel ability scale there, which is kind of cool.
Closing things out here, we've been going a good chunk of time, which has been great. But some of the questions that were submitted on the Trail Talk WhatsApp community, we'll not labour them too much.
I only remember like, what the hell are you doing, you big walker?
Many of these people probably watched the streams, live streams last year. Like, what advice would you give to somebody that's going out to do TSP Solo for the first time and they've never done it?
The advice I give everyone who will listen to me is, don't go fast at the beginning. Don't, just because you can run fast, don't run fast, because everything you do in that first day will come back to haunt you if you get it wrong
tenfold.
And if you can. I think it's true of all running, to be honest. No one in the history of running a marathon has ever gone, I would have done better if I'd run that first 5K harder.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have gone out and afterwards and gone, went so fast on that 5K at the beginning, and it cost me, twice as much. It cost me 10 minutes in the end because I went too fast. It's especially true of the Speed Project. And I think the more people get their head around that unless you're going to win it, even you can win it. 75 hours is rapid for that course, but it's still like less than 5 miles. It's like 4 miles an hour. You do not have to be fast. Do not think because you're running a long way you need to run fast as well. I think if people can keep their heads in that game, then you're still moving as well as you did at the end as you did at the beginning.
What do you wish you knew before your first TSP?
Don't go with Mount Baldy. It's full of snow and ice, and it's flipping dangerous. Yeah, probably. Again, even the first TSP wasn't my first. I ran Gobi 400 and 430K in the Gobi Desert in China, which was super hard and super wild. So
we'll strip it back even to the first time that you started doing this type of thing. Like, is there anything that you can remember back to that I wish I knew that? And don't say I wish I went out slower.
No, do you know what? I don't have any like major like learning points in this, because I feel like the learning points is is part of the experience. I mean, sure, some people will want the shortcut direct route to winning Western States, but like, and I don't have the answer to that either. But I also feel like part of the sport that I love is the getting it wrong. Got lots of things wrong, and I've not finished my fair share of races over the time for poor nutrition, and mostly poor nutrition. But I feel like that's, you get the shoes which are probably simplistically, wish I bought shoes that were half a size larger earlier in my running career and didn't lose those toenails quite so often in those, and then you buy half a size larger and you're like, never lose it. Don't lose a toenail as much, and you're like, why didn't I do this years ago? So it's just, I think. I haven't really answered the question, but I think the answer is just the learning it. Getting it wrong is part of the process.
Part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the answer is you're going to get things wrong, learn from them, and do something different the next time. The nutrition thing is every time I get it right, I'm like, yeah, nailed it. use the same nutrition next time, and I'm like puking up, and it's like that didn't work, or I bonked somewhere else, and you're like
the six other variables were all different.
Well, that's the problem. Therein lies the beauty of the sport, isn't it? That you get it's hotter or it's colder, and you do the same thing, and it's different, and your body affects your body different. But I think lean into the negatives and the positives, and afterwards think about what you do differently the next time, and learn from it, and and maybe it works better next time, maybe it doesn't. But there's a lot of variables, right? There's a lot of variables. The longer you go, the more there's variables.
Last question. Very simple one. Shoe choice.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm supported by the North Face, so.
And then there's a number of North Face shoe fans. In fairness, for a few years, they've been making some great stuff.
And my comment to that is that gives me a restricted choice by only I could go and wear a pair of shoes. They probably wouldn't be very happy. But when you're doing 700 kilometers, someone will probably make an exception. In all honesty, I've been running in those shoes now since 2020. In the latest iteration, I haven't run much in the latest iteration, the Pro 3, but I ran the last two speed projects and Atacama Desert in a Pro 2, Atacama in a Pro 2 concept shoe rather than with a gaiter because of the sands, but basically the same shoe, which is the Pro 2 carbon plated foam, with the Dream foam, which is the Pebax EVA mix foam, so it has some durability. I mean, and the rocker, it works for me. It works for a lot of the elite runners, and
that's what you're going to use.
Yeah, I'm still in two minds because I also have the new Sky 2, which is quite a lot lighter. I think it's I want to say it's probably sub 200 grams in 8.5. But there's a couple of, it's lighter. It has a lot less stack height.
Yeah.
I think it's 28 mils or something rather than about 33, 34 in the. So there's 10 mils perhaps difference across the shoe, and
a lot less squish as well.
A lot less squish, and the rocker is a lot less pronounced. I mean, it's some of the VK guys on the team have been like tearing legs off with wearing that shoe, and it's got 5 mil lugs with a soft ground control. The surface control grip is softer geometer, so it's probably not the right shoe, but there's a low weight. It's quite appealing because I've got a lot of footsteps to take. But I'll probably go with the Pro 3. I mean, it's also got 4 mil lugs. It's pretty. I mean, what I think that a shoe does work really well is it's pretty good on mixed terrain. So it won't be a football boot on the 100 miles of tarmac I've got to do to start with, and it won't. But it'll be okay for that section over the back, assuming it's not crazy ice, and then you really anything you need is like Tula spikes or something. I don't want to carry the weight of those.
I'm mad that you're picking like a carbon plated running shoe for something where you're gonna essentially be doing a lot of hiking.
What do you think would be?
I don't know.
I mean, I've just worn that shoe like religiously. I must have 20.
Yeah,
I've also worn 20 pairs of them in the last 3 years, and it doesn't tend to cause me any hotspots, any problems.
It maybe speaks more of the versatility of that shoe.
I think it's a lot more versatile than people would give credit to carbon soled shoes. The reality, and one of the nice things about North Face across the range now, then in fact the Endurance 4 has Dream foam. The Ultra Mesa 500, there's a second generation of that. If it hasn't come out, it's coming out. That's got Dream foam.
People love that shoe.
And the foam isn't. Whether this largely be in road shoes or trail shoes, the carbon plate sounds sexy, but the carbon plate just provides the stiffness, right? And you can get stiff. You can make a shoe equally stiff with a nylon plate. The difference is the weight. So you have a shoe that's heavier but equally as stiff as a carbon plate, but the weight is lighter, or depending which one you've got. But it's not. I think it's a bit of a red herring, and it's the foams, the high geometer Pebax foams that are providing most of the thing that people enjoy about the running. Most of the tibial, the decrease in tibial loading on the downhills, the spongy feel that people like, the bounciness of the ball is coming out of the foam, not out of the carbon plate.
Yeah.
It just happens the carbon plate makes the shoe lighter and obviously adds £50 on cynically, adds some more money to a more sexy shoe that people want.
Yeah.
But largely you can get the same effect with a nylon plate. You just have a bit more of a weight penalty. So if weight matters and you're Katie Scheid or someone and you're winning Western States, then clearly every gram counts. But for a lot of people, I think focus on the foams. It just so happens that that's what they sent me. If they sent me the Endurance 4, I probably would have been happy in those. The stiffness of the rocker. If you think about what walking technique is, walking is always heel to toe. Depends on your style, but it varies from heel to toe to flat foot to forefoot. My running is very forefoot running. I probably don't benefit as much, I don't think, from a rocker sole, because if you're landing on the forefoot, you're not getting the full rocker. You probably do get best if you're flat foot, midfoot runner. But I'm going to be hiking, walking, and I'm going to get the full heel to toe roll. If you've got a shoe that's stiff, like a banana shaped, you're going to get a more efficient. North Face make the effective shoe with a rocker sole for hiking. So I could wear a hiking shoe. It would just be heavier and more shoe than I probably need and want. But I mean, I don't. I think the shoes are good. I think they're incrementally improving. I haven't done much running in the Pro 3, but the Pro 1 and Pro 2 are fairly similar as a shoe. I think that for UK runners, the UK listeners, viewers, the challenge has been the lack of 4mm lug on the Pro 3. Not quite enough for UK.
Yeah, we don't really want 4mm is like the bare minimum.
Yeah, and clearly, if you're in muddy conditions, the only thing that really works is a proper mud shoe with 7mm lugs or something. And
don't be mentioning 7mm lugs. Ricky will be going off on one. Ricky and his bloody lug depth.
But I mean, even in Europe, I remember doing Istria a few years ago, and so it's in April, it's coming up, and running with Anna, my girlfriend, and it was actually a Hoka athlete, female athlete, and we were running with her, and we got to this downhill section, and it's like mulchy, and we're wearing maybe the first iteration of Victive Pro, their carbon shoe. It was a super nice shoe, great fit and everything, but she went over the edge of this thing down this hill, and we literally were like, there's no way, there's no confidence in being able to run with that. But go to Chamonix in UTMB with Western States. I mean, it couldn't be more of a perfect shoe than a shoe that's sort of fast on, dusty.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to clear, need to worry about clearing the grip because it's full of mud. So, the shoe has been designed. The thing about North Face stuff, on the whole, whether it be mountaineering, whether it be skiing, whether it be hiking, a lot of the top end stuff, all of the Summit Series stuff, is designed with a very, very specific purpose. We talked about 50-50 down. That jacket is designed for moving fast in the mountains. If you go down to walk your dog in a windy, park up and go for a dog, that jacket will be not very warm because you're walking slowly, you're not generating a huge amount of heat, the wind is blowing through the baffles. And it's true of like the ski jackets, the mountaineering jackets. If you buy the various layers, the outer pocket will line up with another pocket inside on the second layer, so that if you're up there on a mountain and you need to reach in for something, you can access. It's all thought of but as a general purpose item, and I think that's true of the shoes. That shoe is designed to be on the podium at races like Western States and UTMB, and it has done. Does it work for running around on the North Downs Way, South Downs Way in December? Doesn't mean it's no good. It just means they're very specific. And I am in the same breath taking on on a place that it wasn't designed for. But I do think, despite it being very specifically designed to win, that it's actually more versatile than, in the same breath, it's more versatile than you think. As long as you don't want, as long as you're not putting it into the extremes of a Bob Graham round with knee-deep mud. I don't know what works on a Bob Graham round with knee-deep mud, but something. Not that. So it's more versatile than it looks, but it also, in the same breath, has it's very much designed for to put people on podiums in a few key races, and mostly, they're designed in Annecy, and they work well in the Alps.
Perfect. Well, that brings us right through to 2 hours. Anything left from you want to?
No, not really. We covered a lot of ground. No pun intended. Well, we've got to cover a lot more ground in the coming weeks. So yeah,
we wish you the best.
Thank you,
and we'll check in with you along the way.